Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, it's finally a day when I can get out and work. I haven't done a video in 14 days, actively did a video. I've edited a few and got them up, but I haven't actually done a video till this one. Over that time I had a tooth removed. You saw that in the last construction video here on the tractor shed build. And I got a dry socket. I never had one of those things before. I've had 6 teeth removed. Okay? 6 teeth. All of them molars. Had 6 molars removed all together. Well, counting a wisdom tooth, yeah, a wisdom tooth and 5 molars removed. And I had this back right molar on the bottom removed 3 weeks ago. And that thing got a dry socket. Now, I don't know why. It's the first problem I've ever had like this. And it might be because of my infusions. I don't know. I had the tooth pulled, and then about a week and a half later I had an infusion, and that may have had something to do with why I got a dry socket. I don't know. But I had a dry socket, and if I was outside working, every time I took a breath in, the top of my head came off. So there was none of that going to be happening while that was going on. Then we got a snowstorm, which we got about 6 inches of snow. That's not really a storm, but we got a 6-inch snow, and then we got below zero temperatures. So I didn't get to work on this. I can't work in below zero temperatures, and I'm not climbing around on the ladder in the ice and snow. It's just, yeah, old guys doing that stuff is stupid. Okay? Don't be stupid. Because all it takes is a slip and break a hip, and you're probably done homesteading at my age. So, protect yourself from that kind of stuff. Anyway, we got a snow, and it hung on for, I don't know, a week and a half. And I got my infusion during this time. I had to take my 4-wheel drive truck up to drive to Lexington, Kentucky, and get my infusion. And yeah, so I've not been doing too good. And now today is the first day that it's not been raining or snowing in over 2 weeks. So I thought, well, I'll work today. Today's Friday. It's January the 25th or 26th. I don't know which. But, you know, you'll know what Friday is. January 25th or 26th. I think it's the 26th. Anyway, I have been, after the infusion, it always makes me wore out for a couple days. It just does. And then after that, I get to feeling better. But today, I should be feeling better, but I just don't feel good. And this is the only day that I'm going to have to be able to work on the tractor shed. I may try and do a few things, but I cannot do a whole lot today. So I'm not going to video today. I'm just doing this talk to let you know. Now we've got about a week of bad weather, and then it's supposed to clear up some, but you know how weather forecasting is. That's not always the way it works. So here on the homestead, I'm trying my best to put out 3 videos a week. But if there's nothing going on, there's nothing to video. So if I can't get back on the tractor shed build, I'll have very little to video. I do think I'm going to do another blue barrel video or two to make a part for my tractor over here. But today I just don't have the giddy up to do that. And that happens sometimes. You know, as you get older, you have days that you just can't. And I'm having one of them days, okay? I'm having one of those I just can't day. You'll have them. They just happen. There's nothing you can do about it. It just happens. I have been homesteading all my life. I grew up on a homestead. Mom and Dad and my grandparents, they all lived this homestead lifestyle, canning and hunting and fishing and raising big gardens. That's just what we did. So I'm going to tell you right off, the things that you do on your homestead take a long time. Okay, this is just advice from an old guy that's been homesteading for over 50 years. Alright, I'll be 61 this month coming up. 61. And I've been homesteading a long time. And we didn't call it homesteading back then. We called it living. Okay, that's the way it was in Appalachia. Dad was a coal miner, and he worked in the coal mines, and we raised a big garden. The kids got out there and plowed and raised the garden, and Mom canned and put it up. Mom worked in the garden too. Potatoes and corn and beans and tomatoes and squash and cucumbers and pickles and, okra. We raised all that stuff, and I still raise it. I'm going to continue raising it. This spring, the garden is going to get to where it needs to go again. I'm going to have my tractor shed up. My tractor's going to be in the dry. So I've still got to build. I'm building the wing on here, but I still have to build a wing on the other side. But I want to put siding on what I've got before I build the other lean-to on the other side of the main roof of the tractor shed. So there's a lot to do, and your homestead's going to take a long time. It has taken us 7 years to get to the point where we were able to build this tractor shed. And it's all about saving the money as much as it is anything else. If you start a homestead, I don't know any farmers. I live in Garrett County, Kentucky right now. And I don't know any farmers around here that only farm and make a living. Okay? There's very little of that. There are a few. Okay? They have 100-acre properties and they raise tobacco and they do a whole bunch of other stuff and cattle and alright, there's a whole bunch of other stuff they do. They might raise corn and sell tobacco and alright, but to be honest, most of them have a side hustle or have a full-time job outside the farm. Okay, or their spouse has a full-time job. There's a lot of farmers that have nurse spouses. Alright, their wife is a nurse or their wife is an accountant or something, and she works off the homestead or off the farm, and he works on the farm, or he works in a factory 8 hours a day and comes home and farms for 8 hours a day, sleeps 8 hours, and then starts all over again. So there's that. Like I said, I don't know of a farmer around here that doesn't have a job. Most of them have full-time jobs. So yeah, that's something you got to plan for. If you're going to go into homesteading and think that you're going to buy 10 acres and live off of that, yeah, that's kind of a pipe dream. Here's just an example. Now, I've got 9 acres here. That's what we've got. I've got 9 acres. I've got about 2 acres of garden. about, I don't know, 4 or 5 acres, probably 5 acres of hay. 5 acres of hay ground. And then the rest of it is in pasture and brambles. Okay? I leave wide margins, 20-foot wide margins at the margins of my property so that wildlife can sustain itself and grow up in there. I don't like all the wildlife, you know. Coyotes are a problem, but you can live with coyotes if you plan correctly. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. There's no way I could make a living off of this 9 acres. Okay? I know you see these things on the internet. Guy made $140,000 off of a quarter of an acre. He was a hustler. They were hustling. Or either they were lying. Okay? It's one thing to make $140,000, but it's a whole different animal to profit $140,000. Okay? So, yeah, there are homesteads and farms that are full-time farmers, and everybody in the family farms, okay, everybody participates. When I was a kid, the old farmers, their needs were a lot simpler than today. Their property taxes were low. They didn't have car tax. They didn't have car insurance. Okay? They didn't have auto insurance, but they had an old beat-up truck that they kept. Well, today you can't have an old beat-up truck without auto insurance. Okay? Your house, they went bareback on their house. No insurance on their house. No health insurance. None of that. Okay? The doctor was an old family doctor, and he let you pay in chickens. And if you lived to be 65, why, you done great. That was the farms of yesteryear. Today's farms, in order to be profitable, they have $100,000 pieces of equipment that they have to borrow money from the bank in order to make it happen. Okay? They work for big conglomerates like Tyson Foods or some other big thing. Okay? Smithfield. They raise pork for Smithfield. Or, okay, there's a lot of different things that farmers do. But very seldom do they make a living on their own. So if you're getting ready to start this homestead lifestyle, know that you probably can't quit your 9 to 5. Okay? You probably can't quit your 9 to 5. But the benefits of the homestead are many. Many, many, many. So if you can do that, oh, great. Homesteading is a wonderful lifestyle. The food, everything else. But if I didn't have health insurance, I couldn't make it. Crystal and I pay $14,000 a year in health insurance. Let me say that again. We pay $14,000 a year in health insurance. Over $1,000 a month. Oh, that choked me up. You know, chokes me down to pay $1,100 or $1,200 a month for health insurance. But that's what happens. You know, I'm not a spring chicken, and I have to have it. Crystal seldom ever meets our maximum out of pocket. She seldom ever meets our deductible. She doesn't go to the doctor much. Me, I meet my deductible and my maximum out of pocket every year. Okay? I think last year my insurance paid $47,000 for my health care. Okay, so that's one of those things. You just have to be prepared for that. If Crystal and I had gone bareback, where would we be? We'd be bankrupt. This would be a GoFundMe page. Okay, instead of a YouTube channel, we'd have a GoFundMe page, or I'd be dead. One of the two. Okay, the ulcerative colitis wanted to take me out. I weighed 367 pounds when we came here, 370, we'll say. Well, I weigh 268 right now. I have lost over 100 pounds. And all of that is because of the ulcerative colitis. All of it. I haven't changed my diet. I haven't done that much different. I've always worked like this. Okay? So, it's just one of those things that, yeah, without health insurance, we wouldn't make it. And generally, the way you get health insurance is through an employer. I get mine through my retirement system. I worked my years to earn my retirement, and so I get health insurance that I can pay for. It costs about a third of my total retirement to pay for our health insurance. Now, when I turn 65, that'll get better, I hope. But I don't know what happens with when you turn 65 and you go to Medicare. I don't know. Medicare may not pay for my medicine. If Medicare don't pay for my medicine, I might be in a hard way. But if I make it to 70, I've had a good run. I'll be 61, so that's 9 years from now. So, you think about those things. At my age, you just have to think about them. I posted something the other day, and it said, good thing I'm young at heart because the rest of them is wearing out. Well, that's the way it is. You think that you're never going to get old. You feel like you're never going to get old. At 40, I thought I was never going to get old. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at 34. I was 97. Wait a minute. Yeah, 34. I was 34 when I got the first symptoms of MS and wasn't diagnosed full-on proof until I was about 39. So, at 39, I still felt like I could conquer the world. I just had to pay attention and not get too hot or whatever. But now at 60, I have to pay a lot of attention. And you think when you're 40 that you're just never going to get old. At 40, I really didn't think about being old. I didn't feel old. And I could do most of the things I could do when I was 20. Okay? 99% of the things I could do when I was 20. At 60, I can't do 99% of the things I did when I was 20. Okay? Matter of fact, there's some things I can't do. So, I have to modify things in order to accomplish tasks. You'll have to do that, and you're just supposed to be ready for it, and it makes the job longer. Makes it longer, just the way it is. But even if you're 20, even if you started this homesteading life when you're 20, it's still going to take you a long time to get your infrastructure built. Because at 20, you don't have any money. Alright, when Crystal and I were raising kids, we didn't have any money. Okay? When our kids got grown and Crystal was still working and I was still working and the kids were grown and out of the house, we were paying for them to go to college. They both got their bachelor's degrees, and one went to work, one went to graduate school. And at that point, all at once, me and Crystal had money. I don't know where it come from, but when we look back over it, we'd paid over $68,000 for them to go to college over a course of 8 years, over a span of 8 years. So, yeah. Young people raising kids don't have any money. Kids are expensive. It's just the way it is. They're the love of your life. I can't imagine what it would be like to not have children. And these kids today, they're not having children not because they don't want them. They're having them because they can't afford them. Okay? When Crystal and I bought our first place, okay, it was $30,000. I was making $30,000 at the time. $34,000 was what I was making at the time that we bought our first place. And when we bought it, my income was equal to what we paid for the property. What we paid for we bought a double wide. What we paid for the double wide. Now that same double wide is $120,000 or $130,000, and the kids at the same age I was are just making $30,000. They're making the same thing I was. You can't afford a $120,000 home on $30,000. It's just not feasible. So these kids today, they're not having kids. Why? Because they can't afford them. They're being responsible. You want your kids to be responsible. They're not having kids because they can't afford to have a home. Okay, $30,000. Think about that for a minute. $30,000 a year, or $35,000 a year. Let's just say $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year, which is what somebody makes making $15 an hour. They can't afford rent right now. A one-bedroom apartment around here is $600 or $700. They're not bringing home $2,000 a month. Let's say they're bringing home $2,000 a month. Then at $2,000 a month, 50% of that's $1,000. They would have to pay almost $1,000 to have a house to rent an apartment big enough to have them and a child. 50%. And then out of that, they've got to pay for health insurance. They've got to pay for their taxes. They've got to pay for their taxes. They've got to have an automobile. It's not feasible. That's why they're not having kids, because they haven't raised the damn minimum wage. Okay? That's what's got to happen. Everything's going up but wages. It's got to happen. So, I blame both parties for not doing it. I try to keep politics out of this. But I blame both parties for not doing it. Not just one, both. They're both owned by the corporations. So, yeah. So don't think that kids aren't having children because they're being selfish. I hear that all the time. Kids are being selfish. No, they're being responsible. They're being responsible. So I know this was not meant to be a rant video. And I may even take that part out, but I think I'm going to leave it in. Us older folks, we need to start standing up for the younger folks, because they're having a hard time right now. Back when we were young, we had unions and things like that, but most of the unions have been broken. Okay? The labor movement really made a big difference in the lives of me and you and the rest of us boomers. Okay? It made a big difference. But today, these kids don't have that. And corporations are paying what they want to. Basically, they would pay what they want to. Think about Scrooge in the old tales about Bob Cratchit and Scrooge and that stuff. Think about Ebenezer Scrooge. He paid the least amount that he could to get employees. The least amount that he could. Employers would do that today. They would pay the least amount that they could to get employees. You old boomers out there, you need to be supporting our young people. They need your help. They need you to call your senators and congressmen and say, hey, we need to raise the minimum wage. I can't have grandchildren because you haven't raised the minimum wage. And they go, well, some people will tell you, they'll go, well, you shouldn't get $15 an hour to flip hamburgers. If you work 40, look at the folks at McDonald's. Look at the people that are working at McDonald's. They're not teenagers. Most of them are 20, 30. Okay? There's some 40 and 50-year-olds in there too that are flipping hamburgers, working 40 hours a week because it's all they can get. Anybody who works 40 hours a week ought to make a living wage. Period. I believe that a person ought to earn the value of their work. Now, if we make it so that people who are working as waitresses and fast food workers and that kind of stuff get a $15 an hour minimum wage, you go, well, I've worked for years and only get 15. Well, you should be getting more. Think better of yourself. You should be getting more. What's happened is you've learned to be satisfied with nothing. Don't be satisfied anymore. You can't just be satisfied with that. If we raise the minimum wage and it finally gets up to $15 an hour, the people who are making $15 an hour will be making $30. Okay? And they say, well, it'll cause prices to go up. We haven't raised the minimum wage since 2009 and prices are still going up. Okay? It would cost McDonald's 25 cents on a Big Mac. I'd pay an extra 25 cents on a Big Mac for all of their employees to get $15 an hour. Okay? 25 cents price hike on a Big Mac. A Big Mac since 2009 has gone up 100%. It's doubled or tripled to what it was in 2009. Record profits are the thing. Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Billionaires are becoming trillionaires on the backs of the poor and the middle class. We're losing our middle class because you won't stand up and say raise the minimum wage. That's what's happening. That's why we can't have grandkids. You boomers out there that don't have any grandchildren or that have to have your kids live with you because they can't make it. It's not that they're not trying. We've let them down. We need to stand up for them. All you old retirees like me, you need to be calling your congressmen and senators and say, raise the minimum wage. It's just what we should be doing. Now, us homesteaders, how do I fight inflation? Well, I save my own seed. I raise all my vegetables. Crystal and I very seldom have to buy vegetables. We've had to buy some broccoli and stuff this year because I didn't raise broccoli. I'm going to go back to raising broccoli this next year, but I didn't raise broccoli this year, so we had to buy some vegetables. We buy some other stuff. We've got deer meat in the freezer. We love deer meat. Anyway, that's another subject altogether. Deer meat's wonderful. But that's one of those things that you have to think about the next generation, not just you. Not just you. Think about the next generation. As a homesteader, I raise my own vegetables. Potatoes, we don't buy potatoes. We don't buy tomatoes. We don't buy, we don't buy this. We don't buy that. We don't buy pickles. We don't buy, all right? So you can sure, as in this homestead lifestyle, cut down on what it costs. But you don't own your own property. Me and Crystal don't owe a dime on this piece of property that we're living on. We're in it free and clear. Except I have to pay $800 in taxes every year. About $80 a month in taxes on this property every year. And then it costs us about $700 a year to have insurance that insures the house, and then liability insurance for if I have a goat that gets out and gets down on the road and somebody hits it with their car, I'm liable for that. So that kind of thing, I've got liability insurance for that. So between my property taxes and the insurance that I have to carry, It's about $5,000 a year. Okay? Taxes and insurance. About $5,000 a year. Not $2,500 a year. I'm sorry. $2,500 a year. So, you don't own nothing in the United States. You have to pay your property taxes. That's just the way it is. You know, you've got to have that money. So if you have a homestead, you'll have to either have a source of income, make income on the homestead, which is really hard, or go to work. Just, that's the way it is. And if minimum wage is up, you will have to work less. Let me say that again. If minimum wage is up, you'll have to work less. Minimum wage should not be a partisan issue. Okay? It's not Democrat, not Republican. It's none of that. It should be a human issue. Without raising the minimum wage, prices still go up. And minimum wage was never meant for teenagers. It was meant to keep people out of poverty. Okay? Minimum wage was meant to keep people out of poverty. Otherwise, we have to supplement them. Every person that's working, every person that's on food stamps that's working 40 hours a week, we are subsidizing them because their wages are too low. We are paying our taxes, we're paying for their food. So in other words, we're giving a big subsidy to some corporation or some company because they don't pay enough for them to live. That's our fault. That's our fault. And see, people are going to holler, that's socialism. No, that's not socialism. That's a basic fact. If you don't pay people enough to live, you have slaves. Slavery can be a modern concept. What did the slave owners do for slaves back in slave times? Well, they provided them with health care, whatever they got. Wasn't much health care back then anyway. They provided them with health care. They provided them with food, shelter, okay, clothing, and a way to get back and forth to work. If you're working for food, shelter, clothing, and a way to get back and forth to work, and you can't afford anything else, you're a modern day slave. And your kids are modern day slaves. Modern day slaves. You've got to help them. Stand up. Stand up. Okay, I may see you in a week. I may see you next week. I may not. But this is a rant a little bit. But it's all about facing life's facts. I face the facts that I'm older, so I have to slow down. I face the facts that my children don't make enough money to own a home and have children of their own because the minimum wage hasn't been raised. Okay? That's a fact. That's a fact. I know you older folks go, well, it's costing me a lot more to eat. And yes, it is. It's costing your children a lot more to eat, too. Older folks need a COLA, cost of living increase. But we can't do that because corporations aren't paying their fair share. Okay? Billionaires aren't paying their fair share. It's just that simple. They're not paying their fair share. And they need to. All we'd have to do to save Social Security totally would take the cap off of the, I think it's like $120,000 is the cap. If you make over $120,000, you don't have to pay Social Security tax on anything above $120,000. So people who make over $120,000, they pay Social Security up to $120,000, and they don't pay Social Security anything above that. Well, what about the people that make $1 billion? Wow, that would be a lot of new money into Social Security. And look, if a billionaire pays $1 million in taxes, he don't miss it. Okay? If a billionaire pays $1 million in taxes, he don't miss it. If he pays $50 million in taxes, he don't miss it. Alright? If a millionaire pays $250,000 in taxes, and they're making $1 million a year, they don't miss it. Okay? They miss it a little bit, but nothing like you and I would miss it. Okay. Face the facts. Homesteading takes a long time. Do the best you can, and be satisfied with what you can get done. Because if you can't be satisfied with yourself, you're going to be a sad person. Be happy with yourself. Be happy with what you can accomplish. Don't stand by and let your kids languish because you're too afraid to call your congressmen and senators and go, hey, we need to raise the minimum wage. Okay? I know they don't listen to me and you. Okay? Calling your congressman probably doesn't do a bit of good to for you to do that unless you pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into their campaign. Probably doesn't matter to them one shit. They probably don't care. Okay? Doesn't matter what party they're from. They probably don't give a crap. Alright? But if you call them and say, look, raise the minimum wage or I'm not going to vote for you. Enough people call them like that, guess what? The minimum wage will get raised. Okay? And mean it. Look, if they don't raise the minimum wage, vote for somebody else. Vote for anybody running against them. Anybody running against them. It should be the hot button issue on the campaign. But people are blinded by rich people telling them that if they raise the minimum wage, they'll raise everything they'll price everything out of ability to pay. It hasn't happened in all the years that minimum wage has been in effect. Let me say that again. It hasn't happened in all the years that minimum wage has been in effect. The raising of minimum wage and the establishment of minimum wage created a strong, robust middle class. Raise the minimum wage. Okay. Rant done. Love y'all.